The bells ring before dawn, their sound carried on mist that clings to the earth like a memory. I stand at the edge of the village, watching shadows move in the half-light, carts creaking, voices murmuring in languages I only half understand. Somewhere beyond the wooden houses a fire burns, and the smell of fresh bread drifts through the cold air. This is market day, the one day when the world comes here, to this small corner of England, bringing with it salt and iron, wool and wine, hunger and hope. I have walked through the night to witness this, and now as the first light breaks over the thatched roofs, I step forward into a day that will never come again. If you long to travel through lost centuries, stay with me. Our journey is just beginning. I arrived at the village when the sky was still bruised with night, my boots caked in mud from the long road that winds through the hills of this kingdom. I am not alone. Others walk beside me, a wool merchant from the north with a cart pulled by an ox that moves as if dreaming, a woman carrying baskets of eggs wrapped in cloth, a boy leading a mule loaded with leather hides. We do not speak much. The road has taught us all the same silence. The village appears slowly, rising from the mist like something half-remembered. Timber-framed houses lean toward each other across narrow lanes, their walls patched with wattle and daub, their roofs heavy with thatch that drips with morning dew. Smoke rises from a few hearths, thin and pale against the gray sky. At the center of it all stands the church, its stone tower watching over everything with the patience of centuries. The marketplace is a wide square of packed earth, bordered by houses and shops, and already it hums with preparation. Men are unloading planks of wood from carts, setting up trestle tables with the practiced efficiency of ritual. Women arrange cloths over the tables, smoothing them with rough, reddened hands. A baker's boy runs past carrying a wooden tray stacked with loaves, the crust golden and steaming. The smell follows him like a ghost. I find a place near the edge of the square, beneath the overhang of a house, and I watch. The air is cold and damp in the way only England knows, a cold that seeps into your bones and settles there. But there is warmth here, too, in the anticipation, in the way people move with purpose, in the knowledge that today the world will shrink and expand all at once. A cart rumbles past me, wheels groaning, loaded with barrels that slosh with ale. The driver nods as he passes, his face weathered and unreadable. I nod back. We are strangers, but for today, we share this ground. The church bell rings again, clearer now, calling the hour. And with it, the village begins to wake in earnest. Doors open, voices rise. The market is coming to life, and I am here to see it unfold, breath by breath, moment by moment, as it has unfolded for generations, and as it will unfold long after I am gone. The first merchant to open his stall is a cloth trader. I watch him from across the square as he unrolls bolt after bolt of wool, some dyed deep red with madder root, others green from weld, still others left in their natural cream and brown. He handles each piece with care, smoothing the fabric with his palm, checking for flaws in the weave. His fingers are stained with dye, his tunic patched at the elbows. He does not look up, but I sense he knows he is being watched. Merchants always know. Beside him, a potter arranges his wares on a table. Jugs and bowls of rough earthenware, their surfaces unglazed and honest. He stacks them carefully, testing their balance, and when he is satisfied, he steps back and crosses his arms. His eyes scan the square, waiting. Others begin to arrive now, a slow trickle that will soon become a flood. A man with a cart full of iron tools, hammers, chisels, plowshares, each one still smelling of the forge. A woman selling dried fish, the air around her thick with salt and the memory of the sea. An old man carrying bundles of rushes for thatching, his back bent under the weight. They greet each other in passing, some with words, others with only a nod. There is familiarity here, but also distance. This is business, after all. I move closer, stepping into the square properly now. The ground is uneven beneath my feet, worn smooth by years of footsteps. A child darts past me barefoot despite the cold, chasing a dog that has stolen a crust of bread. Laughter follows them, sharp and brief. The sounds multiply. The clang of a hammer as a carpenter repairs a broken stall. the low murmur of conversation in Anglo-Norman French, the language of trade and power, mixed with the rougher tones of English spoken by the common folk. I catch fragments of both, understanding some, guessing at the rest. A voice calls out, a man selling honey, his jars gleaming amber in the growing light. Another answers, a woman offering fresh milk still warm from the cow. The market is finding its rhythm now, the rhythm of exchange, of need and offering, of hands reaching across distances both real and imagined. I pause near a stall draped with furs, rabbit, fox, the occasional deer hide tanned and softened. The trader watches me with sharp eyes, calculating whether I am buyer or merely curious. I offer a faint smile and move on. There is much yet to see and the day is still young. By mid-morning, the market has transformed into something alive and roaring. The square is crowded now, bodies pressing together, voices rising in a cacophony of language and laughter and argument. I let myself be carried by the current, moving from stall to stall, breathing in the smells that layer one upon another. Wood smoke and sweat, fresh bread and spoiled cabbage, leather and manure and something sweet I cannot name. At one table, a spice merchant displays his treasures. Small cloth pouches filled with peppercorns brought from lands so distant they exist only in stories. He opens one for a customer, and the scent cuts through everything else. Sharp, exotic, impossibly rare. The customer, a woman in a fine woolen cloak, inhales deeply and names her price. The merchant shakes his head. They begin to bargain, their voices low and serious, each word a move in a game both have played many times before. Nearby, a blacksmith's apprentice sells nails and hinges from a wooden crate. His hands are blackened with soot, his apron scorched from the forge. A farmer examines a hinge, testing its weight, bending it slightly to check the strength of the metal. He grunts, satisfied, and drops a handful of small silver pennies into the boy's palm. I pass a stall laden with cheeses wrapped in cloth, their rinds pale and sweating. The vendor cuts a sliver for a buyer to taste, and the man chews thoughtfully before nodding and pointing to the largest wheel. Beside them, a woman sells eggs nestled in straw, each one precious, each one handled with the kind of care reserved for things that break easily. The air is thick with voices. A group of men argue over the price of barley, their faces red, their gestures wild. A mother scolds her daughter for wandering too far. A minstrel sits on an upturned barrel, playing a simple tune on a wooden pipe, his hat on the ground collecting the occasional coin. I stop at a table covered with loaves of bread, dark rye, coarse and dense, the kind that fills the belly and lasts. The baker, a stout man with flour dusting his beard, nods at me. I hand him a coin and take a loaf still faintly warm. I tear off a piece and chew slowly. It is rough and sour and utterly real. Further on, there is salted pork hanging from hooks, its surface glistening with brine. Barrels of ale stacked 3 high. Bundles of herbs and thyme, rosemary, sage, tied with twine and smelling of summer even in this gray autumn. There is linen cloth, rough spun and practical. There are wooden bowls and iron pots and leather belts and bone needles. There is everything a life requires, spread out under the open sky, waiting to be claimed. And everywhere there are hands. Hands reaching, hands counting coins, hands testing the weight of goods, hands sealing bargains with a firm grip. This is the language of the market, older than words, spoken in touch and trust and the transfer of value from one person to another. I stand still for a moment, letting it all wash over me. This is not merely commerce. This is survival, yes, but also connection. For one day the world contracts to this square and everyone here, lord and peasant, merchant and monk, is part of the same living tapestry. Not everyone here is local. I can tell by the cut of their clothing, the unfamiliar accents, the way they carry themselves with the wary pride of those far from home. There is a man from Kent, his cart loaded with fleeces of extraordinary quality. Fine wool from sheep bred for softness, destined perhaps for the looms of Flanders or the workshops of London. He stands beside his goods with arms crossed, speaking to a local merchant in clipped, careful French. The negotiation is respectful but firm. Both men know the value of what is being offered. Both men know the other knows. A trader from Cornwall has traveled even farther. His wares are blocks of tin, dull gray and impossibly heavy, stacked in his cart like ingots of compressed earth. Tin is precious here in England. Mixed with copper, it becomes bronze, the metal of bells and coins and tools that last. He does not need to advertise. Buyers come to him. And then there is the Flemish merchant. He stands out immediately, not because of his height or his features, but because of what he sells. Cloth so fine it seems to shimmer in the light, woven with a skill that no English loom can match. He speaks broken English with a thick accent, gesturing expansively, and a small crowd has gathered around his stall. A nobleman's steward examines a bolt of deep blue fabric, running it through his fingers, and I see the merchant's eyes gleam with the certainty of a sale. These travelers are both welcomed and watched. The locals need what they bring, goods that cannot be made here, luxuries that elevate daily life. But there is also suspicion. Strangers are never entirely trusted. I see it in the way people glance at the foreigners, in the way transactions are conducted with extra witnesses, in the careful counting and recounting of coins. The coins themselves are a language. Silver pennies, some freshly minted with the king's profile, others worn smooth by years of handling. Occasionally, a gold coin appears, and the crowd around it grows quiet with awe. Gold is for the wealthy, for the powerful, for those whose lives exist on a different plane. I watch a transaction between the Flemish merchant and the steward. They agree on a price, and the steward produces a leather purse heavy with silver. The merchant counts each coin twice, biting one to test its purity, and when he is satisfied, he nods. The cloth changes hands. The bargain is sealed with a handshake, witnessed by those standing nearby. Trust here is built in public. Near the edge of the market, I see a group of men speaking in low voices around a cart laden with barrels. Wine from France, someone whispers. Brought across the channel at great risk and greater cost. The wine will go to the tables of lords and bishops, poured into cups of silver while the rest of us drink ale from wood and clay. These travelers bring more than goods. They bring news of wars in distant lands, of harvests failed or flourishing, of kings and popes and the endless churning movements of the world beyond these hills. And for a few hours, standing in this market square, we are all connected to that larger world, part of something vast and incomprehensible. There is a section of the market where the air changes. It is not marked by rope or fence, but everyone knows where it begins. Here the goods are rarer, the buyers more discerning, the atmosphere charged with a different kind of energy. I approach slowly, careful not to seem too eager, too poor, too out of place. A merchant displays spices brought from the far reaches of the known world. Peppercorns, yes, but also cinnamon bark curled like ancient scrolls, cloves dark and pungent, saffron threads worth more than their weight in silver. He keeps them in small wooden boxes, opening each one with a reverence usually reserved for relics. A buyer leans in, inhaling deeply, and I see his eyes close with something close to ecstasy. This is not food. This is magic. Beside him, another trader offers wine in sealed clay amphorae. Not the rough stuff sold by the barrel elsewhere, but wine from Gascony, wine that has traveled across water and land to reach this English market. The trader breaks the seal on one amphora, pours a measure into a small cup, and offers it to a prospective buyer. The man sips, considers, and names a price that makes my stomach tighten. The trader laughs, counters with a higher number, and the dance begins. Nearby, a woman sells silk. Not English wool, not even Flemish linen, but silk, smooth and shimmering, impossibly delicate, a fabric that whispers of Byzantium and the trade routes that stretch beyond imagination. Only the wealthiest will buy this, only those whose lives are cushioned by privilege and power. And then I see him, the official. He wears a tunic marked with the Lord's colors, and he moves through this section of the market with authority. He stops at each high-value stall, and the merchants know what is coming. He collects the market tolls, the taxes owed to the Lord who permits this gathering on his land. Some pay willingly, counting out coins with practiced efficiency. Others grumble, but they pay nonetheless. No one refuses. The hierarchy of the market reveals itself here, layer by layer, the nobleman's steward who buys silk and spice, the wealthy merchant who can afford to import wine, the local lordsman who takes his cut of everything. And below them, the rest of us, and watching, wanting, calculating what small luxury we might afford if fortune smiles. I notice a young monk standing near the spice stall, his rough brown robe a stark contrast to the finery around him. He speaks quietly with the merchant, and I realize he is buying for his monastery, perhaps incense for the altar, perhaps medicine for the infirmary. Even holy men must come to market. A heated argument breaks out nearby. Two merchants are disputing the quality of a shipment of iron. Voices rise. Hands gesture wildly. A crowd gathers, eager for drama. The Lord's official pushes through, his voice cutting through the noise, and the argument subsides into sullen negotiation. Order must be maintained. The market exists because of rules, and rules exist because of power. I step back, letting the crowd swallow me again. This heart of commerce beats with a rhythm both beautiful and brutal. Everything here has a price. Everything can be bought or sold. And in that simple truth lies both freedom and chains. The sun has begun its slow descent, and the quality of light changes. The morning's sharp clarity gives way to something softer, warmer, tinged with amber. The frantic energy of peak hours fades, and the market settles into a different rhythm. I find myself drawn to the quieter corners now, where the smaller trades persist. A blacksmith has set up a temporary forge at the market's edge, his anvil resting on a stump, his fire fed by a boy working a leather bellows. He repairs tools brought to him by farmers. A broken hoe, a bent plowshare, a knife that has lost its edge. Sparks fly with each strike of his hammer, brief constellations against the gathering dusk. The sound is hypnotic. Ring, pause, ring, pause. The pulse of creation and repair. Nearby, an old woman sells herbs. Her stall is modest, just a cloth spread on the ground, but her knowledge is deep. She explains each bundle to those who stop. Feverfew for headaches, comfrey for broken bones, woundwort for cuts that refuse to heal. Her hands are gnarled with age, but they move with certainty among the dried leaves and roots. A young mother approaches, whispers something I cannot hear, and the old woman nods, selecting a particular bundle and wrapping it carefully before accepting payment. There is a man mending shoes, his hands moving quickly with needle and thread, patching leather that is worn through. His customers wait patiently, some barefoot, holding their broken footwear like wounded birds. He works without speaking, his concentration absolute, and when he finishes, he hands back each shoe with a small nod. The payment is a few pennies, sometimes less, sometimes a trade, a loaf of bread, a handful of eggs. A minstrel has found a new spot, sitting on the church steps now, playing a ballad on a small harp. His voice is rough but not unpleasant, and a few people have stopped to listen. Children sit at his feet, their faces upturned, transported by the story he weaves. When he finishes, he doffs his cap, and coins clink into it. Not many, but enough. I notice the beggars now, those I overlooked in the morning rush. They sit against walls or crouch in doorways, their hands outstretched, their eyes both hopeful and resigned. Some are old, their bodies broken by years of labor. Others are young but maimed, a missing hand, a twisted leg, badges of accidents or disease. A few passers-by drop pennies into their palms. Most walk past without seeing them at all. A dog wanders through the crowd, sniffing for scraps. It finds a discarded bone and settles down to gnaw it, unbothered by the human activity swirling around it. Another dog approaches, and they negotiate in the way of animals, a growl, a submission, a sharing of the prize. This is the market's other face, the one that exists in the margins. Not the glamour of silk and spice, but the daily struggle for bread and survival. Yet there is dignity here too. The blacksmith's pride in his work, the herbalist's quiet knowledge, the minstrel's gift of story, the cobbler's humble skill. As the afternoon deepens, I feel the weight of all these small lives, all these small transactions. Each one matters. Each one is part of the great web that holds this world together. and I am grateful to witness it, to stand among these people for just this one day, this one market, this one moment in the endless flow of time. As the shadows lengthen, I find myself standing near a wool merchant's stall, watching him pack his remaining goods. He is old, perhaps 60 winters, perhaps more. His beard gray as winter sky, his movements slow but deliberate. He catches me watching and speaks. "You are not from here." It is not a question. I shake my head. "Just passing through." He nods, as if this confirms something he already knew. They all pass through. That is the nature of markets. He gestures to the square around us. "I have been coming to this place for 40 years. Since I was younger than you, I think." I move closer, drawn by something in his voice. Not nostalgia exactly, but a kind of lived wisdom. "Much has changed?" I ask. He considers this, his eyes scanning the market as if seeing not just today but all the yesterdays layered beneath it. Yes and no. Different faces, same hunger. Different coins, same bargaining. The wool still comes from sheep. The bread still comes from grain. The fundamental things. He trails off, then shrugs. Those do not change. But then his expression darkens slightly. Though we have seen hard times, the wars with the Welsh, they disrupted the roads for years. Bandits, soldiers, you could not travel safely. And the harvests. Some years the rains never stop, and the grain rots in the fields. Other years, drought. And always, the taxes. Oh, he picks up a bolt of undyed wool, running his hand over it with unconscious affection. I have seen plague come through these villages. Not often, thanks be to God, but when it comes, he shakes his head. The market empties. People are too afraid to gather. And when it passes, there are fewer faces, fewer buyers, fewer sellers. I listen, saying nothing. But we endure, he continues, his voice firming. This market has stood here for generations. It will stand for generations more. Because people need things, and they need each other. That is what markets are truly. Not places of goods, but places of meeting, where the world shrinks small enough to hold in your hands for a day. He looks at me directly now. "You will leave tomorrow, yes? Move on to the next place?" "Yes," I admit. "Good. That is as it should be. But remember this day. Remember that once, in the year of our Lord 1250, you stood in this square and saw people doing what they have always done, trying to live, trying to trade hope for bread, bread for hope." He turns back to his packing, and I understand the conversation has ended. But his words remain with me, settling into my chest like stones in a riverbed. I look around the market again, and I see it differently now. Not just a commercial event, but a ritual. Not just transactions, but connections. Not just survival, but something closer to defiance. A collective refusal to be erased by time, by war, by plague, by the endless grinding difficulty of existence. This market is memory made tangible. It is the past speaking to the future. It is every market that has ever been and every market yet to come, all compressed into this single autumn day. And I am part of it now, whether I wish to be or not. The light is failing now, the sun dropping behind the hills to the west, pulling color from the world and leaving behind only shades of gray and blue. The market is dissolving around me. Merchants dismantle their stalls with the same practiced efficiency they used to build them. Planks of wood are stacked onto carts. Cloths are folded and packed away. The potter wraps his unsold wares in straw, cushioning them against the journey home. The spice merchant closes his boxes one by one, the snap of each lid like a small goodbye. Some traders are already leaving, their carts rumbling over the uneven ground, wheels groaning under the weight of goods and coin. I watch them go, watch them disappear into the gathering dusk, and I wonder where they will sleep tonight. In a barn somewhere under the stars, in an inn if they can afford it. Others head toward the village tavern, the promise of ale and warmth pulling them in like moths to flame. I hear laughter from inside, the rough camaraderie of men who have spent the day in competition and can now afford friendship. The square itself is transforming again. Where there was abundance, now there is debris, trampled straw, broken pottery, scraps of food left for the dogs and birds. A woman with a broom sweeps the area in front of her house, reclaiming the space from the day's chaos. Children pick through the remnants, searching for anything of value. A dropped coin, a forgotten trinket, a crust of bread. I walk to the center of the square and stand there, turning slowly, watching the market die. It is both melancholy and beautiful, this ending. Like watching a great beast settle down to sleep. The church bell rings vespers, and the sound seems to give permission for the last stragglers to depart. The old wool merchant I spoke with earlier nods at me one final time before climbing onto his cart. The herbalist gathers her bundles and shuffles away into the shadows. The blacksmith douses his forge, and the sudden absence of light is startling. I should leave too. The road is long and night travel is dangerous, but I linger, reluctant to release this day, to let it slip into the past where all days eventually go. The sky deepens to purple, then to black. Stars appear, one by one, indifferent to everything below. A cold wind rises, carrying the smell of smoke and earth and the distant promise of rain. I pull my cloak tighter and turn toward the road. My boots scrape against the packed earth of the square, and the sound seems too loud in the new silence. I do not look back. There is nothing to see now but ghosts and memory. Tomorrow the square will be empty. Tomorrow it will return to being just a space between buildings, unremarkable and still. But for one day, this day, it was the center of the world. And I was here to see it. I walk through the darkness with the market still alive inside me. Every step away from it feels like a kind of theft, as if I am carrying something that does not belong to me. The weight of all those voices, all those hands, all those small acts of exchange that together formed something larger than any single person could create. The medieval market is not just a place of commerce. It is a testament to human persistence, to our endless, stubborn insistence on connection, even in the face of isolation. For one day people emerge from their scattered farms and villages, from their separate lives of toil and worry, and they come together. They bring what they have made, what they have grown, what they have traveled far to obtain, and they offer it to strangers. And in that offering, in that negotiation, in that moment of agreement when goods change hands, something almost sacred occurs. Trust is established. Value is acknowledged. The invisible web that binds us all is made visible, tangible, real. I think of the old merchant's words, that markets are places of meeting, where the world shrinks small enough to hold. And I understand now what he meant. For all the vastness of the kingdom, for all the distance between villages and the barriers of language and class, the market creates a space where those divisions, while not erased, become permeable, where a Flemish trader and an English farmer can stand face to face and find common ground in the simple act of exchange. This is how we survive. Not alone, but together. Not isolated, but interconnected through 1,000 threads of need and provision, desire and fulfillment. The road beneath my feet is dark, but I do not stumble. My body remembers the way, even if my mind is still wandering the market square, still watching the potter stack his bowls, still listening to the minstrel's ballad, still smelling the exotic sharpness of peppercorns from lands I will never see. And perhaps that is the true gift of such a day. Not the things bought or sold, but the reminder that we are part of something larger than ourselves, that our individual lives, however small and brief, intersect with countless others, that every transaction is also a conversation, that every market day is a small defiance against the silence and emptiness that waits for us all. The year is 1250. This market in this village will happen again next month, next year, for decades to come. Other travelers will stand where I stood. Other hands will reach across the same stalls. Other voices will rise in bargaining and greeting and song. But this particular day, this specific constellation of people and weather and light will never return. It existed once, perfect and imperfect, and now it is gone. Except here, in this telling, in this remembering. The stars wheel overhead, eternal and cold. And somewhere behind me in a darkened square, the ghosts of the day's market linger for just a moment longer before fading into the earth from which they came. I walk on, carrying them with me into whatever tomorrow brings. If this journey moved you, don't forget to subscribe and join me on the next voyage through forgotten worlds.